you're thinking about this, all right, I'm in the messy middle. I got to give myself grace. I'm going to stick to the financial order of operations. Well, then I also have to make sure that I stay inside the guardrails, because I think so often what happens is in that messy middle, it's not all hard, difficult, bad things going negatively. Some of it can be, I did get a new job. I got a promotion, and all of a sudden there is a pressure and an availability to do stuff like go out and upgrade the house, go on the nicer vacation, and there are some big mistakes that you can make in there. So it's important to understand what those guardrails are and where they exist.
Well, we've already discussed that the two things that create the messy middle is a lack of money and a lack of time. So we wanted to break this and start talking about guardrails and solutions. Let's focus on the money first, and then we'll close it out kind of focusing on what are the solutions in time with time. And the first thing we want to talk about with money is how do you avoid the big financial mistakes?
And when we're thinking about the big mistakes, there are two that sort of immediately come to mind. One is failing to plan. If you're like, this always came up when I was a child. It said, failing to plan is planning to fail.
Oh, yeah.
These are those folks who don't actually save up a little bit of today for the unknown tomorrow. You don't have the emergency fund in place. You don't have the $1,000 covered. I mean, we know that 60% of Americans right now in this country could not come up with $1,000 tomorrow. That is a problem. So you want to make sure that you have emergency reserves in place. And then the other thing, Brian, you mentioned this with the social media, is that we see so many people faking their lives. They don't actually do anything. They run up the credit card debt. They start doing those sorts of things to subsidize a lifestyle that's not really the lifestyle they ought to be living.
We all know leaning too heavily into the credit card too early is catastrophic. I mean, it makes me sad for our country when I see we have over $1 trillion of credit card debt. I know the average interest rate on credit card debt is now well past 20%.
It's insane.
It is impossible to get ahead if you're leaning on credit card debt. So I'm just telling you, don't go to that bridge to nowhere. We're not against credit card use, but we are 100%. It is a binary decision that you can have zero credit card debt to have success over the long term. Don't fall into that trap no matter what or how good or how temporary you think your stay in that Hotel California will be.
I love it. And so we're talking about avoiding the big mistakes, like not keeping an emergency fund or running up credit card debt. But then we also have to think about our consumption behavior. And one of the biggest decisions that we'll make, maybe not the biggest, but one of the biggest decisions that we all make, and we certainly make this as we start to get married and start families, is the type of automobile that we drive. What kind of car are we buying? Well, if you want to make the most of your money through the messy middle, make sure that you choose an affordable car that fits your lifestyle, not the one that's going to look good on the next social media post.
Yeah, I mean, affordable is definitely not going to be sexy, cool, and impress your neighbors, but it's going to get you reliable transportation from point A to point B. I think cars, if you want to start getting to the point that you get excited when you walk outside and look at your car, that's more of a step 8 of the financial order of operations. We are so different than the vast majority of financial content creators, is that we actually give you the grace to actually do financing on a car. But it is more of reliable transportation, not the ability to spread out your purchase to afford something that you actually couldn't do quickly. Because this is we're thinking Camry, not Land Cruiser. And here's what we have. We have the 23.8. And for those of you who are not familiar, and we have a great show we did on this, you ought to go check out How to Buy a Car the Right Way. We did an entire deep dive on this. The 20%, when we're talking 23.8, is 20% down. That gives you a head start on trying to outrun the depreciation. 3, that is 3 years, meaning 36 months. As we see the trend that car loans are going 60 months, 72 months.
It's insane.
84 months. Insane. I mean, we are in just crazy town. But I want you to bring yourself back to the more sobering 36 months, because that's going to let you see how big that car payment has to be to actually pay this thing off quickly. And then I don't want those monthly payments exceeding 8% of your gross income. So go figure out 8% of my total gross income, divide that by 12. That's what your car payment should not exceed for the household. And then remember, luxury cars don't count for 23.8. It's back to Corolla versus Land Cruiser. If you're thinking anything with a luxury brand title attached to it, you have sorely misunderstood what we're trying to create with 23.8. And then the final thing, your monthly investments, they better exceed what your monthly car payment, because that's what's going to actually create margin and success. We're going to show in a minute more things you can do with money. Respect that those investments need to be larger than those monthly car payments.
And Brian, I love so much that when it comes to thinking through these things, what you're really trying to do, you say this all the time. You say, don't go out and try to find complexity, because complexity will find you. Well, I'm going to argue in the messy middle, don't go out and try to find messiness. Messiness will find you. So why on earth would you take an already stressful time and bolt on there a really expensive car that you can't afford, that you shouldn't be driving, that has $1,000 payment on it, if that's not something that's absolutely a necessity for you to do the things that you need to do in the way that you do it? Don't make it stressful for the sake of being stressful. So we've talked about the big mistakes like not having an emergency fund, running up credit card debt, big purchases like cars. I think another thing, and this is so poignant right now based on where we are in our economic cycle, is that I think if you want to make the most of your money in the messy middle, you need to wait to buy a house or wait to make that next home purchase until you can actually afford it. I think there's so much pressure out there. Again, people that love checking the boxes, moving in the checklists, they think, okay, I did this, I got to go buy a house, or I'm this age, I got to go buy a house, or I got to go buy a house. While that may or may not be true for your situation, you want to make sure you can do it when it actually makes sense to do it, so that you don't get out over your skis and set yourself up for a rude awakening.
Well, we get asked a lot of questions about real estate, Bo, and we do have the buying a house rules. And just to kind of quickly review those is that make sure you can live in this house for 7 years. You got to make sure you put down 20% on your second and any upgraded houses, but your first house, we're okay if you get in there for 3 to 5% just to get in on the home equity train. And then we want your monthly cost to be below 25% of your gross income. But the thing I think about with housing is that we had such a run up during the pandemic because I think so many interest rates were low. Everybody was focusing on, that they had to be in a house. So it just created some weird distortions. And over time, I don't know, and also geography makes a lot of location. That's why I would tell people, go moneyguy.com/resources. Not only do we have the housing rules, we have the checklist for you to go through, and it's going to really go into the details of how location matters, how long you can be there, because I worry with the compression of the returns. I mean, houses are not typically going to make 50, 60% over a 3 to 4 year period. It's going to compress what's going to happen in real estate going forward. That reversion to the mean is real. So I don't want people getting out in a hurry to go run out there without at least doing their homework to understand the house buying rules, as well as going through our checklist to make sure you don't get caught up in the moment and feel like the clock and the buzzer is going to ring against you, when maybe you just need to kind of evaluate, analyze, and then measure twice to get the right housing purchase or rent decision for your situation.
Now,